All right, we're back for another show today, and I get excited for these shows, but I mean, this one is even more special because this is the first time that I'm having someone on that has worked with me. You know, Andrew Ross helped me launch the Florida Tropics, Central Florida Sports Ventures Company, and helped me build that up. He's been in the sports world a little bit with the MLS and the MASL as well. I'd like to, Andrew, give us a little bit of background on your journey so far.
Yeah. I mean, it is great to obviously be here and be speaking with somebody who I've been able to work with and kind of share some of the things that are going on. But kind of a little bit about, just a brief background. Obviously soccer has been kind of my sport and seems to be where my entire career has kind of gone. Started up in Syracuse where I was going to school working for the Silver Knights, which are now Utica City, and they're killing it over in Utica. So, congrats to them. And from there was, that was back when the MISL was still operated by the USL. So I was able to go straight from Syracuse to the USL and do a full season back in I think it was their last season before they became like League Ones and championships and stuff like that. So it was like the first year they had an MLS2 team in. So really exciting, with what was going on there. But from there was Orlando City was still in the league, was able to go get connected with them and was able to go be a part of their first MLS season, which was probably something that, in your career, you get really, I mean, how many teams get launched, in MLS? I mean, recently actually a decent amount.
Now a bunch. Yeah.
Yeah.
But back then that was rare.
Oh, it was rare. And, we had 65,000 people at that home opener. And, a funny story I always joke about that is at that home opener, we had these pub passes that basically we had a pub run and you could go and get your ticket and people didn't exchange the voucher for the ticket. So I had the only cell phone that had the Eventbrite login for these hundreds of people who didn't get their tickets, and people were crying in line. I mean, they were so sad because they were being told, no, we're not going to take this voucher. You had to do it 2 days ago. And I said, well, actually, I have a cell phone. So I hand my cell phone over, and this is at the home opener. So everything's already a mess. I've got family in the game and everything. So I have these people just looking at me through the window going like, thank you, like in tears because they were able to scan to see that it was still a valid voucher. They hand me my cell phone back and it dies right in my hand. And I'm like, oh, great. Hey, save these people. And, you can't plan for those things, but it was great to be a part of that. And, that was a really great learning experience for myself and just to be a part was incredible. And was thankful enough that was like the perfect time frame to get that experience before we got linked up from, I think it was John Raymond, right?
John Raymond from Syracuse and the league office, I think at the time. Well, yeah, going back though, was Orlando City, was that at the Citrus Bowl that year or was it at the new stadium?
Still at the Citrus Bowl. So I was there the first 2 seasons were both at the Citrus Bowl. Then they built the new stadium and, they've been there now 3 or 4 years. It's but the Citrus Bowl was fun because, it was we could put 40,000 people in there on an average, Saturday night. And it was just an incredible atmosphere and everything. So talk about a great opportunity. And, but yeah, and then I think John's still with the league, I believe too. So it was nice of him to link us up and then we started something pretty special in Lakeland.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was in St. Louis at the time. My daughter was getting ready to graduate. I think it was going into finishing her junior year when I started really looking in Florida. And when I got to the point where I knew it was going to happen, and hell, even at the time, even when I hired you, we didn't know what city we were going to be in. That's the funny part.
Yep.
But I knew that number one is my wife and I and AJ and Natira, we all love Florida.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to me, Florida is home. And so as soon as my daughter graduated, we made the commitment when we moved to St. Louis to launch the ambush. Hey, we're going to stay until you graduate. Then we got into going into her senior year. It was awesome because I was like, well, you have enough credits to graduate. You need the one class. And so she didn't get that class. And I was like, well, let's call your guidance counselor and see. I said, do you want to go to school for half a year if you don't have to?
Yeah.
And
right.
she's like, okay, yeah, it makes sense. So she ended up graduating in December and that's when we moved down. But even before that, yeah, I reached out to John. I was like, hey, we're gonna launch a team in Florida. I'm looking for a GM, and he gave me your number. And then I remember like the first time I called you, because I was at an event in St. Louis, and we were promoting, and we were able to connect, and it was good, and then started talking from there. And it had to be kind of weird from you to just, I assume it was kind of out of the blue. I don't know if John called you beforehand.
No, John texted me and said, okay, hey, but I remember how quickly you acted on it. And I just remember being like, okay, maybe it'll be a week and I'll hear from this guy. And John was like, all right, I'll let him know. And it was like literally that evening. I still remember it. I was in my apartment in Orlando, and it was like, wait, Andrew, is this, I'm feeling this. This is we got some good energy going on here, but we acted pretty quickly. It was kind of a no-brainer to kind of bring that together.
Yeah, no. And then the big key, I mean, I typically can make decisions pretty quickly, which has helped, but getting the deal done with the cities, was the challenge. And I remember I was like, okay, I like Andrew Ross, but let's see what my boss thinks, because Leah, my wife, is such a better judge than I am sometimes. And we like you, but there's one thing that stood out to me. Do you know what it is during our interview time? There's one thing that stands out. And I know you can do it, but you told me what you want to do, where you want to be.
Commissioner of Major League Soccer one day.
There you go.
Yeah.
and I believe you could do it, man. But I like the fact that, I mean, you had something in your mind that you want to get to, and all the stuff that you've done. I mean, you're continuing to build and gain momentum and knowledge, around that. So my thought with bringing you in was, all right, you were in ticket sales with Orlando City. Ticket sales has always been like my least, favorite thing, or maybe the thing I haven't had to focus on as much. In St. Louis, I had Brian Roth, who was unbelievable at ticket sales.
Yeah, great guy.
I was always the partnership guy, leadership on the ticket. So your ticket knowledge, I was like, wow, this is what I need here. I need somebody that can kind of take the ticketing and run with it. And then obviously I threw in like a million other duties for you in addition to tickets. But so what was like how did you come about, that? I mean, it's kind of like, a promotion in job responsibilities, but a demotion in level. Yep. And so I still think it was probably, from a career standpoint, the knowledge and responsibility that you have is probably way more valuable than if you would have probably stayed. But what kind of was going through your mind with figuring that out?
Yeah, I mean, I think had I never had experience in indoor soccer, like I did up in Syracuse, where I loved the sport, I just like the energy behind it. I like, kind of the feel for it. I loved that job up there. I think then it probably would have been like, I would have never known John regardless. So it wouldn't have even been a question. But, I think kind of what you said is, the sports industry is, everybody wants to work in it. Everybody wants to make it in the sports industry. Nobody wants to put in the actual work to make it into the sports industry. People get in and then they say, they do it for a year and they're like, I can't do this for 5 years before I get a promotion. So it can become difficult that way. So I think a lot of that's what kind of played into my decision was, it was our chemistry. It was that we knew we could work well together. We knew we could start something, and we knew that we started from zero, from absolutely nothing to build something, that excited both of us. And we both have that entrepreneurial mind to A, take that risk, and then B, also know what work is going to need to go in to accomplish that. I think that was a big part of it. I remember when we met, up in Orlando, just all the conversations were good. We both liked the brand, and we both knew nothing about Lakeland, which was probably
oh my God. Lakeland is the place I hate the most, I think. I don't know. I just lost so much money there. And it's like, I just thought that we did everything the right way from the beginning. I thought we planned it out. We spent a lot of time, but it's such a unique, it's like nothing I have ever seen anywhere.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely was a tough sports market, but being there 5 years, we obviously struggled a lot in year one, year two. But I remember last season we had our Lakeland Electric night, which was the night that the city basically sponsored and purchased the tickets for everybody to come out, and we had like 3,000-4,000 people in the arena. It was the largest crowd we've ever had, and it was incredible. And that's where I was like, okay, this is what we worked towards. This was why we
Yep.
did it, is knowing that it was going to be a struggle right in the beginning. And it was probably more of a struggle than I think we both thought, because in other markets, you see teams selling out arenas on their first game. And, even in Orlando, there was kind of that, where this was like, that's a baseball, football market, and people
Yeah.
didn't know soccer, and we're introducing them to something totally different. But to see kind of where it was on those day ones and those early struggles to where it was, right before COVID hit, and kind of how we had won a national championship, and, things really came into fruition. I think the community had really finally accepted that this was
Yeah.
a hometown team. And I think that was the hardest part, is that people were like, well, this team's just going to come and go like everybody else. And it's hard to say what the future is going to hold for the sport, for the league, for everything as it comes to the MASL and everything. But to see kind of where it was able to go was, I think, very rewarding at the end, before everything kind of flipped upside down, and the sports industry is going to be different probably forever now.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think to kind of go full circle, it was really a no-brainer from our initial conversations of, hey, let's do everything we possibly can to make this work. And either way, we gave a community that didn't have a real professional soccer team, we gave them that pride. And we know, you and I both know, that's something that soccer's the sport of the future. And we know what it could be. So hopefully it's able to continue on, and we can kind of still have our legacy there.
Well, I mean, when we first started talking, we developed branding for a team in Kissimmee
Mm-hmm.
and for Lakeland, and we were like, my goal, honestly, from day one was, I'm going to do both.
Yeah.
The Kissimmee team would have been in year two. That's why I chose Celebration, where I was living. I mean, Celebration's kind of closer to Kissimmee, but at the end of the day, it's almost the same drive time.
Yeah.
The mileage is much different, but and then was it like, did it scare you, like the first month you worked out of my kitchen? We worked in my dining room.
They always say you got to do that at some point in your career, where you got to start something on a dining room table, and I never forget when Phil Rollins, who started Orlando City, he shared that same story with me when I was working there, where he said, they were in Austin, Texas, on a dining room table, writing notes on a napkin of how they were going to start a pro team. They actually looked in, I think, the Carolinas first, and then eventually got kind of driven towards Orlando, which who would have thought Orlando would be such a soccer, heavy market, but I guess with no NFL there, no MLB there, it made sense. So yeah, I mean, that was,
So it didn't scare you too bad.
No, it didn't scare me too bad. I was actually kind of excited at the thought of kind of doing both, which I guess with the Seawolves, when they came in, obviously not probably done the way you and I would have done it properly, but
Yeah.
it did eventually kind of happen. And we ended up seeing a little bit more success even in the Lakeland market. But I think both markets can still sustain a team. It's just got to be done right, especially in that open market.
They're very unique, and I agree. I think in Lakeland, it added up. I personally invested over 200,000,
Yeah.
which is a lot to me. I'm not a huge money guy. I've never been. But with selling St. Louis, partway through there and having some, in savings, it's really the only way I was able to. But the same thing. I mean, I think Lakeland is probably, I think the current owner will have a better shot because he's in the community.
Yep.
We were outsiders. I mean, even you as a GM, when you moved to Tampa, I mean, as much as we're in the community and working, I still think Lakeland is kind of that good old boy. Hey, we got to make sure that, we got some people that are here. So, I think that was a big challenge, and it was a lot of fun though. I enjoyed it. We brought, it was basically me, you, Leah, And then we brought Ryan Sweet down from St. Louis, who worked up there with me, who for 3 months, I didn't even know his name. I feel bad. But, you guys are all like family.
You couldn't forget mine. I mean, if you did, then we would have had to say, how old are you really,
Yeah, exactly. Well, we say, what do we say? Little Andrew, big Andrew, old,
Right.
old Andrew, young Andrew.
Little A, big A,
A squared.
A squared.
And then you add AJ in there. If he wants to go by Andrew, then we're in trouble.
Cubed, I know. Too many Andrews.
So when you got in, what was the transition like for you? Because, you went from pretty much like a sales rep with Orlando City to now you're the managing, the GM. I mean, you literally were managing the day-to-day operations on the sales side for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely a big jump, and they kind of say you have to kind of do something to get experience in it. I think for my biggest probably struggle right off the bat was the lack of management direct experience in terms of managing people. I think some of the rest of the stuff, I learned a lot with a sport management degree, how to, sell and things like that. I learned kind of over the different, people that I had to work underneath, from my old boss, Alan the Venture in Syracuse, who taught me how to sell sponsorships, to Zach Ryan and Chris Gallagher in Orlando City. So I was able to take all that knowledge, but I think it was definitely kind of the, hey, it's on me if, something, it's not, I can look towards somebody else. And really it was us, it was what we created was going to be whatever work and effort you and I put into it, which is why, we were out there at every event on a weekend. I was out in Lake Wales setting up a tent and a table, and I was lucky to sell 2 season tickets, but it was what needed to be done to get people aware of who we were and what we were doing. And, towards the end, where I will be graduating from the Leadership Lakeland program in August, and, to really kind of get into that, I felt like I eventually did kind of see what I wanted to see out of that community, is that people knew who I was and embraced it. And I really made a lot of friends, and then people who I'm still working with and still talking with and things, even though I'm not in there full time anymore, who, I'll probably work with no matter where I am, because they're just good people and do good business. So it was kind of nice to get that experience full circle. But yeah, it was a tough jump kind of in that first probably year and a half or so, until I really got in the groove of things and understood this is, the sales cycle, this is our timelines, this is the indoor versus the outdoor, and really understood what needed to be done. But it was a big jump, but something I'm very thankful for you for giving me the opportunity, because I wouldn't be here where I am today without it.
Well, and I think people need to realize too, it wasn't just one team. It was basically indoor in the winter, and there was really very little gap in between the PDL season. What's it called now?
The USL League 2.
USL League 2.
Yep.
It's just confusing to me. Just keep it PDL. It's easier. But yeah, I mean, and with the stadium for outdoor, it's not like when you run an arena and they have a box office, they have full staff. I mean, pretty much everything we had to do, really you did.
Yep.
But, I remember that first game. I mean, I don't remember how many people were there, 5,000, 6,000 probably. I mean, the place was packed. It was awesome. It was awesome. So, it definitely, those are some of my funnest days are those opening days. Yep. No matter what season, what team.
Stressful but great,
Yeah, I mean, I remember us talking the first Tropics game, and just kind of like, man, all the work that we all did and everything that it took, because people don't see all that, and especially when you're a small staff.
Yep.
It was interesting.
You remember that? I mean, you remember winning that game in the last second with Ricardo Dieguez with like a bicycle kick goal.
It was against San Diego.
Dockers. I mean, we couldn't have asked for a better. I remember it was from a work standpoint. We were running around like chickens with our head cuts off, because we didn't know.
Oh yeah.
We didn't know the arena. We didn't know the people. By season 4, I was, it was like clockwork basically. Right. I was at the train staff and get it all done. But that first game, I remember we were just all over the place. But hey, we couldn't have asked for a better outcome. Good crowd, good things. And then even with the PDL opener, same thing. We were, like you said, there was nothing there. I mean, I remember like we couldn't even get the lights turned on sometimes. Like locker rooms were like, saunas basically, because there was no air conditioning. We had to create our own ticket booth. We had to go and outline the parking. People don't realize like how much goes into,
Oh yeah.
we're there at 9 o'clock in the morning, setting up the parking lot, kicking trucks out of there because they're trying to park there. I mean, it was a nightmare, but rewarding at the end with, a win, and both games for home openers were great.
When we what was it? When did the Lakeland Magic come? Was it the second season for us?
Second season, yeah.
Okay, so we were there a season before them, and once they came, they pretty much took over everything. I mean, it was then we really became the redheaded stepchild at that point.
Which rightfully so. They got the contacts, and they had everything that was needed. And I actually did quite a bit of work with them where we did some collaboration this past season, and they're awesome people. Shelly's an amazing person to work with. Ryan Buckley over there, they, are very, very, top of the line professional. And I think it was good because it kind of showed the level of professionalism that arena was drawing, which, I think elevated our brand, in the long run, as opposed to in the beginning where we weren't totally sure, are we going to get anything? But, from a sponsorship standpoint, that was probably the only area that was questionable, was their ability to sell permanent signage versus ours and things like that. But they had those contacts. So, what can you do? And it's good to see that kind of there was good fusion at the end, between both franchises.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the G League and the NBA. So, I mean, it's just, but there was some, I don't know what the proper word would be, but it kind of gave me a little reassurance when, it's not like they were selling out the arena either. So, because I was beating myself up a lot saying, man, what could I have done better? Do I suck? Like, what's the deal? Like, we did okay, but we didn't do anywhere near what I think you and I are capable of and the staff that we had. So I was always, and so seeing that and a few other things, it's like, okay, I definitely think it's going to take being there a long time, just showing that you are part of the community to really be successful. So, and you guys have continued to grow that. I mean, I sold the majority around the end of the first season. And then I sold out, I think my last few percent, I wasn't even involved in the last season, but 2018, I think it was in July. But, how about, this is something that you and I started developing before I stopped working full-time for the team, was developing like a youth program. Mm-hmm. And we were getting close, but we didn't get it over. So kind of tell me, the story there on what you guys did and what you were able to grow that to and what that looked like and how that had a positive impact on the club.
Yeah, well, I think we kind of realized right off the bat that it was going to be tough to say from ground zero, with an already established club there, how are we going to essentially compete with them where, and we didn't really have that option to kind of partner with them in the first year because they were checking out who we were checking out who they were, and, kind of seeing, I think a lot of that came together when we really outlined what does youth soccer look for, right? And focusing more on the competitive side, not so much the rec side. Youth soccer looks for that path to pro, right? That opportunity to show a kid that he can play from age 9 through age, 22, semi-pro or, low-level pro within his hometown, and then maybe get, scouted to a Rowdies or to an Orlando City, and we can kind of bridge that. So I think the USL2 franchise played a huge role in that because Dara Cullen was the president at the time. And I remember just he was at one of our games, and obviously Owen being the head coach, technical director. I mean, we figured out ways to partner, to fuse it all together with what is the focus is to provide a professional atmosphere for players to develop in Lakeland, which they were already doing a great job of, but then it was how do we elevate that with a professional brand, maybe a little bit more resources and just some more, help and ideas that we bring to the table. So I think the USL2 franchise played a huge role in that because it gave them that kind of path to pro and opportunity to really get that. And then really the players coaching within the youth club, and just being a part or coming out and, running a tutorial to kind of say like, hey, you can be me one day. Just keep working hard and keep, playing at it. And then to have Juan Tejada go from the League Two team to starting for the Tampa Bay Rowdies showed that, hey, yeah, you can play for this team.
And move up.
Starting for a championship level team, within a year. Victor Rojas was another one. He was playing for Las Vegas, playing over in Europe. So it really is that path to professional soccer. And I think that's what fused it all together, on top of just collaborating and saying there's no point in competing. Let's work together. And I think it was a big success, and excited to see. I think that can also have a legacy past the pro side. So if the COVID doesn't, go away and pro soccer can't really thrive a little bit, you still have the brand with the Lakeland Tropics and the youth club that can thrive there, and then maybe slowly restart that path to pro back up once things get back to normal.
Did you guys partner with other clubs besides Lakeland, or because I thought that you started adding more in, and I know where I lived in Celebration, I would see people in Tropic stuff as well.
Yep. So we brought in Pinellas County and Celebration, and it was Celebration was a different partnership because they actually needed to be able to feed through Lakeland to provide the resources and the FISA sanctioning and things that they needed. So that was a perfect partnership. It was actually an old guy who I used to play soccer with, Kyle Wilson, up in Virginia, who's their technical director. So when I was like, well, yeah, I mean, let's figure this out. Kai Velmer and Don Tobin and the WPSL franchise over in Pinellas, that was a little bit more of a difficult partnership because they were even further than Celebration. But I think it was good to kind of start, and we just didn't really see a lot of people going from St. Petersburg to Lakeland or vice versa. And it was going to be tough to get a kid from their top development program, have him drive from St. Pete to Lakeland to train. So, rightfully so, the Rowdies were a better fit for them. And it was exciting to see them switch over to that partnership because we were all working together. If we had a good kid, we wanted what was in the best interest of the player. But it was exciting to have that, for a couple of years. And it was good to just kind of grow our network. I thought bringing in the women's franchise was great for us because it provided the path to pro for both, the boys and girls in the youth club. So I think it was a success overall. And I hope to see that maybe they'll look to continue with a WPSL franchise in the future once things get back to normal, with the last franchise now going back to the Rowdies.
And do you know what the plans are now with the USL2 there? Is that, I know that because there was an outdoor UPSL.
Yeah.
I forget all the names, but.
I do know, I can't say publicly yet, but I can say look for announcements for a new USL2 team popping up somewhere that you're probably not expecting.
I know where, but
it's funny. We actually have a call on that later today with yeah, exactly.
Are you gonna?
Chris Madden and Joel Nash over there?
Are you part of that then? Like,
yeah. I've been working with Chris. I want to see that franchise succeed, in the long run, and that's kind of sometimes what you have to do is they have to relocate. So
I told him, I said, man, you should have moved it here, Fredericksburg.
No, we got to go
brand new.
Come on, you and I both know that
this brand new stadium. Oh. It's right.
That deserves the League One team, though, not a League Two. That needs pro soccer there. With that stadium's beautiful.
Yeah.
So, I think
I with it being a privately funded stadium here, I mean, the goal is to develop it into more than just baseball. I mean, the ownership wants other stuff in there, and actually, they've talked to me about soccer way back before all the COVID stuff. Asking some questions, but hopefully. We can get things going because I think a soccer team here would do well. The baseball team is doing unbelievable. I mean, it's like if I told you how good some of this stuff, it's like you can't even believe it. It's like, man, how hard was it in Lakeland compared to here? It's like it's not fair.
Yeah.
But I mean, soccer's booming, and I remember I went to my first owners meetings at the USL for MASL when they were running it. And some of the owners didn't want me in because I wasn't a soccer guy and I didn't like, I wasn't a passionate soccer guy. But I'm very competitive no matter what. Like, it doesn't matter really what it is. Yeah. I mean, I think you probably have seen that with just if we went and played laser tag or if we went and did anything, I am hyper competitive. But I remember that they were all saying that. And then, halfway during the first season, they're like, okay, we get it. You're a fan because I led the league in fines for bashing officials or something.
Oh, we can show that story if the guy can put in the video. Let's show that I'm a fan.
That is epic. I mean, that is one of the best.
Oh man.
Things. So, what's your kind of most proud moment in your career, or and if it's not with what you did in Central Florida, what is with that?
Well, I think you talked about home openers. I mean, those are kind of always that marked memory for you when you see something that maybe you worked. For us, it was almost a year, before we even kicked the ball. So I would say probably the home opener for the indoor, the PDL home opener for the outdoor. Those were two big ones for us. We had good crowds.
Yeah, great crowds at both.
We talk about telling funny stories. Well, I don't know if you remember this, but at the PDL opener, so we had all those people there, and I'm standing up in the press box, and I look out and see both teams walk out, and I notice that the Villages are in green and we're in teal, and we're in teal, white, teal, and I look at that, and I'm sitting there and I'm going, oh my God, they're wearing the same colored jersey, and then I'm thinking to myself, and I'm like, I don't even know if we have the other jerseys here.
Because I think they just arrived or something.
Yeah, and
too.
the away team is supposed to change. However, they didn't have their jerseys, so what are we going to do? So I immediately sprint across the field. Like, I don't think I've ever run so fast in my life, and just tell them, get back in the locker room. And then we sent an intern to
the office. Yeah, I remember now.
Who then forgot the key. So he gets all the way to the office and then goes, I'm locked out. And we go, are you kidding me? Like, what are you doing? And we sent another intern, and we told everyone it was a weather delay because there was some storms off the distance. We ended up doing, I think like $5,000 in concessions in like that 1 hour, because that's all people were doing. We were able to sell alcohol back then, at the stadium because it was city owned. And I just remember that being such a moment. And then we flipped them into orange jerseys. We got them out. We were on like a 20-minute delay. I remember Todd Easton was the director at the time, and he was there. But hey, you work through those things, and that's called sports. That's what you live for.
But the key is most people, they left having a great time. And they don't even remember. They don't know what the hell's going on.
No. I mean, that was, the one behind the scenes thing that I joke about, that I'm like, but we figured out how to solve it just like we did everything. So I would say that was definitely, I'll never forget that game, to win 4-3 too. And, just with that crowd and just really the games we had there in general. I really enjoyed, the league too. I mean, it was competitive, it would rain and people would still be out there, 1,000 people with their umbrellas. We had such
good following. Yeah.
Fan base, with the outdoor franchise, where it was like, that's where I started pushing for outdoor in Lakeland. Cause I almost saw that could maybe be more competitive and a little bit, more profitable than the indoor side. But, we'll see what happens. Outside of that, I would say the national championship in the UPSL, which was a league, we just kind of said, let's just see what happens, just to play more games. And the next thing we know, we were winning a national championship, which it doesn't matter what, if you're playing in any of the top 4 leagues, USL, UPSL, NPSL or above, it's not an easy task to win a national championship.
Winning at any level, I've learned, is tough.
It is.
It's tough to win that championship.
We were down. I think we were down 2-0 in like the 81st minute, and we came back and won it in PKs. I mean,
that's
it was
crazy.
It was 100 degrees out. We're in
Texas, wasn't it?
Texas or something, outside of Dallas. And, there's 20 people in the stands because nobody was traveling. I don't know, there wasn't a home or away advantage. And, we were just going crazy. So I think those 3 kind of moments will kind of always be with me. And then probably last season, that Lakeland Electric night, to have, so many people and finally see the community embracing it and finally saying, all right, I see what you guys have been working towards. So those are definitely the big moments as far as the Tropics go. And, outside of that, probably just that home opener with Orlando City, those kind of things are the things that instill in your mind.
Because that was huge. Wasn't that 60,000 plus for Orlando City?
The final count, staff and everything included, was like just over 65,000.
Wow. That's awesome.
62. And then, with everybody else that's in there. So it was It was an incredible atmosphere that Kaká scored to tie it up. You know, you didn't get a win, but it felt like a win because
Oh
you know,
yeah,
it was like a
people were just jacked.
yeah. So, you know, but to see people embracing as someone who's really devoted their career to soccer, you know, not just sports in general, but really saying, you know, I want to be in soccer. I want to lead soccer in this country. You know, I have the vision, you know, to see kind of so many different things come up. Atlanta selling 75,000 people, you know, or whatever their max stadium is. It's great to see for the sport that I think has a bright future in this country.
Yeah, no, I mean that's for sure. So with your kind of transition into the tropics, you were kind of leading the sales team. What worked best for you on, say, like the ticketing side, helping develop? Yeah, I remember the first year. I mean, it was pretty much all kids probably right out of college on the ticketing side, and some interns, and you know, I kind of tasked that with you and Ryan to kind of put together something. I thought you guys did a phenomenal job with, you know, a training program and things like that. But was there any program specifically that, you know, worked really well for you there, Orlando City, or even up in Syracuse?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of all different at different levels, right? I mean, obviously, at Orlando City, I had, you know, a professional guy come in. We spent 2 or 3 days only doing ticket sales training. You know, you weren't hitting phones or anything right away. You know, Lakeland, you really don't have that luxury. So we kind of had to design our own. And remember, you know, one of our most successful season ticket sales campaign was with 3 interns over the summer. But the hardest part is kind of keeping motivation, I would say, because you know, well, you know, nothing was really hustling tickets there. You know, nobody was selling a ton of tickets, but you know, if we sold a couple hundred season tickets over a summer, that was a success for what that market was meeting at the time. But
And
I
people
think that
didn't
was,
know us, like, you know,
no,
Orlando. Okay, you know,
everyone answered
Orlando
the phone.
City. It's the MLS team. You
Yep,
know,
yep.
the Tropics. Unfortunately, we're not as well known.
No, and I think it got a little bit better, but I think that was the toughest part is, you know, at Orlando City, you have a team of, you know, 10 plus people who are all motivating each other, who are kind of competitive against each other and are driving each other to make the calls, to go to the events, to close deals. Then you go to a smaller organization where that competitiveness is very tough to keep because you know, in Orlando City, you make a couple hundred calls, you're pretty much going to get at least one sale out of that. You may make 1,000 at a minor league level and get nothing. So it's so much more difficult where you almost have to be more creative and say, just try to get more person to person. I think that's where we saw the majority of our success was physically talking to somebody, getting their information, following up with them, which is still kind of somewhat how it's done. But for minor leagues, that's a huge part of it. Is really that personal connection with connecting directly with somebody, not just a cold call. But the motivation part was very, very difficult, remained difficult because, like I said, you know, nobody wants to just hear no 1,000 times. 100 times is tough enough, but 1,000 times, you know, you could go weeks without a sale, calling everybody and their mother, their brother, their neighbor. And I think that was the toughest part, was just to keep motivation for sales reps when there really wasn't a whole demand for Tropics tickets, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, it wasn't like we were about to sell out and had to rush in. But
Right.
I mean,
Right.
I think it also, I think the community aspect helped, you know, like you said, you know, there's events that I know I sold, you sold, pretty much everyone has sold season tickets on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think that definitely helped a little bit with recognition, and a lot of those community events were either, you know, geared towards the business community or
Yep.
nonprofits or youth soccer. And so I thought they did pretty well. Um, I remember too, we had, we recorded our calls. You remember those?
I still always would play the Jared call, and I won't say his last name, but
Yeah,
remember,
that,
that
that
was
was somebody who didn't give up on a call,
no.
but
I mean, that's what it was great about, though, you know, was
yeah,
that, you know, but that was the toughest thing was, you know, keeping someone motivated like that for 6 months to a year was difficult. You know, they could do it
yeah,
for a month or two, which was why it was good to have interns. But, you know, we even brought in a really experienced ticket sales director this past year, and we still struggled. It was
Yeah.
still high turnover, very difficult. I mean, this guy was fully trained, selling for the Scranton Wilkesboro Rail Riders, and was
Yeah.
absolutely a star there. Great, credentials and reviews. And to see someone with that much experience come in and still struggle, it really showed that like tickets are not. But that's why we had to be creative with sponsorship and things. But
Yep.
it was going to be a tough market and still is to make money in. It was going to be more of this is a
Yeah.
community asset, which is I think kind of what it turned into.
So what do you, on the partnership side, any deals, kind of stick out to you that were, really creative or just kind of really out of the box that, was a true win-win for the partner and for you guys?
Well, I think, there were two that really kind of pop off the head immediately. Obviously, the Bond Clinic relationship was great. That was to be able, they were involved. Ashley Scanlon is an amazing director of marketing over there. She did a great job with making sure that the brands were connected. But outside of them, Suncoast Credit Union, I think they came on after you had left. But we created the GOAL program, which was standard for Growing Outstanding Academic Leaders. And we sat down with 3 or 4 teachers and came up with that name and wrote out a whole business plan before even presenting it to them, because we thought that that's what they kind of seemed to be into. But they were so involved with the partnership, where they were either coming out to the schools or providing programs for the schools, and they really cared. They were set up at every game. We did the tropical towels. I don't know if you remember those, the orange rally towels that we kind of said, well, the Steelers got yellow, we'll have orange, and we took those, and they must have printed at least like 15,000 of those and just had them at every game. And, they were participating in our theme nights. And I mean, it was just a really great partnership. I enjoyed it. They enjoyed it. That's what it's all about, is that not only were we both helping the community, but we were helping each other. And I thought that was really important. We had a great partnership with CPS Investments this past year. They came on as almost like I think our second title partner, and they were really involved too. They provided a little golf cart that we could drive around the field and shoot t-shirts out of, and they provided resources for players, and it was just that's the kind of thing is it was a partnership, and there's even more that I'm sure I'm not naming right now, but to see. I'll be honest, the majority of our partners we had over there were very active with the team, and they cared. So that's why we saw so much success on the corporate partnership side, as opposed to the ticket sales side and the 5th poorest market in the country. We were kind of doomed there. But the partnership side, it's a very good, strong business community. And we saw so much success with that because they were giving back and not just, signing a contract, here's some money, see ya. Was there a couple of those? Yes. But the ones more involved who said, how can I elevate your brand and my brand together? That was where we saw success.
Yeah. And I think that's where you need to get to with all of them, and I know that we doubled at least probably from year 1 to year 2, and, just kept going. So that's great to see. How is your approach when you're, on the partnership side? Like, how do you approach a potential partner?
Well, I always try to find an initial connection, whether it's at an event, you always got to find that point of contact, right? Who is the person that's, if they're not the direct one making the decision, they're vetting the decision and then presenting it to the decision maker if you can't get directly to that person. So it was always trying to find, so like, for example, with Suncoast, I met their director of marketing at Rotary, and had another person who knew
Rotary was great for you too. Even that first year, you got so many deals from, partners there.
And it was a good community thing. I've always been in Rotary, but, to see the business leaders that the Lakeland Rotary Club has was incredible, and we weren't even, that was to just, for me to give back to the community and to be involved and to see, like I said, with Suncoast, it was someone from the chamber and they were so involved, and, Corey was amazing over there. So people helped us just introducing me there, and then being able to follow up, set a meeting, and get all that and find out what they needed. So there it was a lot of who, like we said, it's a who market. So it was more getting connected with people, gaining their trust, and showing them if this is something that's so good for this community, get behind it, and the only way this survives, like any sports team, is through corporate dollars, through sponsorship and corporate tickets. So It was a lot of connections. You know, we didn't see a ton of success from just cold calling for sponsorship. You know, that just really wasn't done that way there. It was, I got out to as many events as I possibly could, got my name and face out in the community to show that, hey, this is something I care about, this community, and I want this team to be a part of this community for forever. So I need your help to do that. And through that, that's how we really got connected and found out what their needs were, and, you know, made sure that they were getting everything that they could out of a partnership.
And, you know, they're all different, you know, I mean, some people are looking at it like, you know, Lakeland Electric. I mean, they're, I don't know if you call it a monopoly, but they don't, their customers are their customers. You're pretty much stuck, but they got involved because they see it as a community asset. They see it as a way that they can give back to the community. So, I mean, I think that, you know, that's spot on. You got to identify what their needs are and how you can help them. So you were with the Tropics, Central Florida Sports Ventures, for about 5 years.
Yep.
And so you were, you know, a casualty of COVID as well, correct?
Yep.
And so what's kind of, you know, what's next for you? What are you, you know, looking for or open to? Are you only interested in soccer? Are you interested in other sports?
Yeah, I think, you know, look, my goal number one is to stay in sports, you know, is to not venture out, and whatever, you know, whether there's a lot of different landscape in sports. So it doesn't necessarily just have to be a team or a league. So I think that's probably number one for me. Number two is everyone that I've kind of spoken to has said this, the same thing, is my next step has to be important with kind of who my next boss is, essentially is very, everyone has told me, they said, well, you know, take some time, think about what you want, what your skills are, which for me, it's mostly sales. You know, I'm a good, I enjoy it. You know, it's what drives me. You know, I like kind of that sales, business development type role, where I can get out, I can meet people, and I can represent whatever brand it is, to drive revenue, because that's what business is all about. So,
Yep.
You know, I think it's trying to find what is that right fit, you know, both from a company standpoint and also from who I'm working with, you know, and whether that stays kind of small, independent, or maybe it becomes a little bit larger brand, you know, kind of just looking in, you know, really the different areas, you know, whether it's like I kind of mentioned, Florida, New York, California, Texas, you know, kind of the bigger
You're picking
markets.
all the nice spots. I mean, come on.
But, you know, hey,
Yeah.
you know, it's not to count out, you know, where there's a lot of good cities in the Midwest too, you know, where it's really more about what am I going to get out of the next opportunity, where I can take the experience I gained over 5 years with the Tropics or Orlando USL and take that to the next level, you know, where I'm no longer an entry, you know, when I started, you know, where you're coming out of college, you know, and now I've got, you know, 7+ years experience in the industry, you know, I've closed 6-7 figure deals, you know, I understand what it's going to mean to be successful. So I think, you know, it's about finding the right fit and job where I feel like it's not just a job, you know, it's I'm not just taking, and if I got to take something to get by, I'd rather do it maybe outside of sports until I land that proper gig, rather than going 6 months into somewhere and leaving, you know, where I'd rather hold off and find exactly what it is that's going to be that next fit and next project for me.
Yeah. I mean, I know I looked for a while as far as like I was very kind of picky on, you know, kind of those things. I mean, you want to be in the right position that, you know, number one, you can be successful. Number two, you're going to enjoy. I mean, because who wants to go to work every day? I mean,
right.
I mean, I'm 41. I don't feel like I've worked, you know, I don't feel like I've had a job. I love what I do. So I don't count the hours. I don't count this or that. And so, yeah, I mean, I think, you know, that's the advice that I would give you as well, is, you know, be patient and make sure that it's the right fit, you know, all around. But, you know, you can count on me for a good reference. Anybody needs anything, I will definitely help out in any way I can. I mean, that's the whole point for what I'm going to start doing with the podcast, starting on Friday with Free Agent Fridays. And I was thinking of having you on that. Those are going to be a little bit shorter, you know, probably 10-minute average. But I think your journey, and because we work together, I wanted to put you on a regular episode and kind of just, share your information out there. I think you've done a phenomenal job. I don't think you've gotten enough credit for everything there, because I know that it was all on your shoulders, and you didn't get all the credit all the time. And you didn't bitch about it. You didn't complain, and you just went with it. You worked hard, you grinded, you're positive. So, I mean, I definitely would bring you in to a position without a doubt. So, so I think just kind of hang in there. I know it's probably tough, and it's kind of shook the whole sports world. There's a lot. Yeah. Nobody knows what's going on. I mean, even I'm in minor league baseball now, and I mean, it doesn't look like we're going to have a season, but that's just me speculating. Nobody has sent us any information. So,
right. So
we'll see, but
it's tough. I mean, I think, the biggest thing is, like you said, it's kind of what can you do to keep busy, even if it's, kind of what I've been doing, which is some side projects, some consulting work, and, just kind of trying to stay in the game a little bit until that next kind of thing kind of pops, getting my name out there, my experience, to maybe somebody who listens to this show and says, oh, hey, that's a position we're going to look to fill in, 3 to 6 months. And, that's something we might be interested in. But outside of that, it's just about staying positive and understanding I'm not alone. There's a lot of people. There's 20 million people out of job right now across the United States. Everybody's hurting right now. Everybody's trying to navigate through this. And the nice part is, I've gotten to spend some time with my family. I've gotten to spend some time at home. Got to go and enjoy the beach last week with my fiance's family.
I saw that. I was like, man, I'm jealous. Come on.
I mean, I've got other things in life events going on where, at least it's kept me busy, but I'm definitely ready to, I think the toughest part is I'm not a guy that likes to just sit around. I'm not. Yeah. I need
it goes crazy.
I need project management. I need something that I'm working towards. So that's what I've really tried to do on the side, and excited for whatever that next opportunity will be.
Well, sounds good. Again, for Andrew Ross, he's worked 5 years in indoor and outdoor soccer. 2 years in the Major League Soccer with Orlando City. Graduated from the Syracuse good old Syracuse. Go Orange. And I would highly recommend him. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions on Andrew. But we'll also post his LinkedIn in the description. But Andrew, that's another thing I would recommend is get on your LinkedIn and build your network and reach out to people, because now people are really open to connecting right now. And I've been able to help increase and build some new relationships just from a cold email on LinkedIn saying, hey, would you get together for 10, 15 minutes just to chat, And so definitely do that. But, we'll have you back on when you're commissioner of the league. You cannot forget about me. That's the one thing I think you promised me that.
I'll be excited. There'll be a couple periodical appearances before then, but once we get to that top one, that'll be an exciting one. It's great you're doing the show and help people out. I highly recommend, if anyone's watching this and, they're saying, well, maybe I should get on the free agency, Fridays, do a little segment, get on LinkedIn, connect with both of us, because, even, I may know somebody that can help somebody else, and I think that's really what it's all about.
Oh, there's the cats.
Yep. I got a cat and a dog. It's my dog's birthday today.
You got a dog?
Yeah. You never met him?
Yeah. I don't think you had the dog before.
There's the dog.
Oh my word.
There's Ollie.
What are you thinking?
He's 3 years old today, so he's an adult.
Wow.
Hi, buddy. So bye. Bye. Pet segment of the show.
Sounds good.